I'll introduce Kathy and Carol, and we can kind of take a break to make sure their slides are up and running. So with that, it's an honor to introduce our keynote speakers for this year's conference, Doctors Carol Pollock and Kathy Nomme, both whom are professors emerita, I always pronounce that weird, at the University of British Columbia in Canada. Doctors Pollock and Nomme have extensive training in grad TA professional development and have research interests ranging from the pedagogy of investigative learning and self-regulated learning to student misconceptions and their attitudes towards biology. Their work on the essential components of GTA training culminated in the publication of the book, The Successful TA, A Practical Approach to Effective Teaching, which I'm really excited to hear some insights on today. And I know Caleb is too, because he has the book. Very excited. There will be some interactive elements of their keynote workshop as well. So again, please bear with us as we kind of deal with the new updated Zoom and technologies. So thank you, Carol and Kathy, for joining us today. And with that, we're just going to take, since this technically starts at 1:15, I want to make sure that if folks are just joining late, they'll have time to be able to start at the keynote. Thank you, Adam, for adding that, the direct link to the conference program. So we have about 7 minutes until the keynote gets started. So feel free to take a quick break before that gets started, grab a snack, grab some water, stretch your legs, and then we are going to have a 90-minute keynote. So we will officially begin the keynote workshop at 1:15 in just a few minutes. Okay, Kathy and Carol, it is 1:15, so I will hand it over to you both, and then just, let us know let me know when you need me to share the Google Doc link, and then Caleb and I will be available for checking the chat as well.
Great. Thank you, Ash. Hello, everybody. Carol and I are really pleased to be invited to come and join you for the BioTAP conference here. It really is an honor for us to meet with a group of people that are all interested and keen about training of graduate student TAs. It is really amazing that we have such a large network of people who are interested in this topic and really care about it. As Ash mentioned earlier, I'm an emeritus professor from the University of British Columbia. I dealt primarily with first-year lab courses, and we had a whole whack of TAs that came and went throughout the years. And so over the 26 years that I was there at UBC, we were constantly working on training the graduate students and developed a BioTAP of our very own that we implemented for all graduate students in the life sciences. Carol, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. So I'm Carol Pollock. I'm also a professor emerita in the Department of Zoology at the University of British Columbia. And like Kathy, I dealt with many graduate TAs in my career at UBC, and it was always a joy and a real great part of what I did to be able to see progress made in the TAs from when they came in at the beginning to when they left. And it was really a really wonderful experience. And of course, working with Kathy over the many years and has been terrific. So just before we begin, I think that we should just take a moment and no matter where we are at this moment, we should acknowledge that we are sharing the traditional lands with the First Nations who lived here before us. We are thankful for the opportunity to work, study, and learn on these lands. If you know which ancestral lands you are on, you can always just give a silent thanks to the ancestors who trod these lands before us. So just to do a quick survey, we would like to know what are your expectations for this workshop. And if you just would like to put your thoughts into the chat, we'll be happy to hear some of them in a couple minutes. Okay, Caleb, do we have some ideas to share?
Yes, we have community is an expectation. We have to get an idea or two, sharing tips and feedback for training, be a part of a community of practice, find ideas, inspiration to develop TA-TPD, practical tips and tools, learn about effective pedagogy, hear more about current efforts to provide teaching professional development, learn some effective tools for our annual GTA training. Katrina says, I'm at a place where I have the opportunity to reach GTAs who are outside of the courses I oversee, so I'm interested in gathering ideas for a diverse group.
Okay, that's great, Caleb. Thank you. So these are all great expectations, and hopefully we will be able to meet most of them, if not all of them. We have a few learning outcomes for our workshop as well, and hopefully this is going to fit in with what your expectations are. So we would like to, by the time we finish this workshop, we would like you to be able to identify essential components of a GTA training program and possible ways to implement them. We would like you to be able to determine potential challenges in implementing GTA training sessions and how to address them. And we would also like you to identify ways of evaluating a GTA training program and also types of educational research, because these things all come together. So, once again, could you please enter the chat and let's hear about your ideas about what topics you think are essential in a GTA training program. And this is going to be entered into a Google Doc, and the link for the Google Doc is going to be in the chat. So please use the Google Doc to enter your ideas, because these are going to form the basis of ongoing discussion.
And I just added that Google Doc in the chat. It should be accessible to everyone, and you should see a section at the very top on that first page that just says whole group, what topics are essential to a GTA training program. And it looks like several of you are already writing, so you have already made it there.
Okay, so it looks like we have some great ideas. The idea of community, honest engagement with the role, strategies for teaching to a diverse student population. I mean, these are really awesome. Communication of student expectations, giving students feedback, how to foster collaboration and healthy team dynamics. I mean, this list is really terrific, and I'm not going to go through all of these. You will get a copy of these when our slides are posted, and you will also see this complete list when you move to your breakout rooms. So I'm not sure if use of technology is on that list. If it isn't, maybe it should be. But
Carol, I'm going to stop sharing. Is that
yes,
okay for now?
yes, you can stop sharing, and I will start sharing again and go back to our slideshow. Okay, so you've got great ideas, and we want you to do something with these ideas. Now, you're going to be assigned to breakout rooms, and you can remember what breakout room number you're in. And of this huge, wonderful list, you can choose one topic at least to get started with. And we would like you to describe how you could incorporate it into a GTA session. What issues could arise with this topic, and how would you address these issues? Now, just to be clear, we're going to give you an example. So suppose we choose the example of first-time GTA nervousness and lack of confidence. We've all been there. We know what it's like. How could you incorporate this topic into a GTA training session? So you decide you're going to implement it by introducing a certain scenario for discussion at your TA training session. And so this is a scenario that you would introduce. And this scenario is actually taken from our book, which we have lots of scenarios and lots of discussions about the scenarios in the book. So a GTA is very nervous about the first lab they will be teaching. They have practiced their introduction several times, but each time they feel more anxious about what to say as well as how the whole lab will go. So in your breakout rooms, you will then talk about this topic and you will think about what kind of issues might arise from introducing this topic. And one thing is that first time GTAs, they've been very successful in their academic careers so far. They're actually in graduate school. They might be reluctant to admit that they're nervous and or to take advice. So this is an issue. How could you address it? Well, you could be proactive and you could set up team teaching for the first session. You could be offered to be an audience for their first go through. You could even ask if an experienced TA would allow them to come to their lab ahead of time so that they can see how a mentor might do it. So these are the components we would like you to include in your discussion. And these will be on the screen in your room if you need to go back to it. So you're going to be in a breakout room. Remember your number. Choose a facilitator and a scribe. If there's not too many in the room, you might want to just quickly introduce yourselves, who you are, where you're from, why you're there. And then from the list that you've generated, great list, choose a topic. So don't everybody pick the first one on the list. We're hoping, like a potluck, which is a real potluck, that not everybody brings dessert. So choose a topic that you're really interested in and see if you want to delve into this a bit more. And then once you've chosen the topic, discuss ways to include the topic in a GTA training session. Identify issues that might arise and how you would address these issues. And your scribe should be entering your ideas on your group's Google page. So your group should have, each page should have a number. And if it doesn't, put the number in of your group and use that page. And so everybody's discussion points will be noted in the Google Doc, and this will be available to everybody after. And then choose one person to present your ideas. And we don't have as many groups as we at once thought we might, so maybe you can make that maximum 3 minutes. So we just want the highlights of what you've discussed. Now, we're going to give you about 15 minutes to do this, and some of you might just fly through this. You might be experienced, you might know quite a bit about it already. If you should find that you zoom through it in 5 or 7 or 10 minutes, you could go on to another topic and start with that one. So we're going to set the timer and we're going to give you some about 15 minutes. And if you would like to set up the groups now, Caleb, that would be awesome. And people have been randomly assigned, so we just have no idea who's in which group. Have fun. We'll pop in and hear how your discussions are going. And I'm sure your ideas are going to be awesome.
Yes, I am setting up groups now.
Okay.
It might send Kathy and Caleb and Carol, it might send you all to breakout rooms, but feel free to come back to the main room. Okay, it should work. And if for some reason, it should also have numbers that correspond to it looks like it's now the third page of the Google Doc. So if for some reason you can't see your number, just choose one of the breakout room rows on the table and just make up a team name. And then that's what you'll kind of present on at the end. But it should be about 4 participants per room.
Excellent.
And I'm going to open all the rooms now.
Okay, good to know that. Okay, is everybody back now? All right. So thank you, everybody. The few discussions I heard were awesome. I think you were really getting into it. And yeah, we should have planned to have a bit longer, but we can have a large group discussion now and pull everybody in. And I'm just going to Okay, can everybody see that? Whoops. Am I still sharing?
No.
No, okay. Okay, so as I said, really the discussions I heard were absolutely awesome. And now I hope we can have a bit of a larger group discussion with the presentations. And I'm going to turn it over to Kathy. I'm going to stop sharing. And I learned a couple of things too, which is always great when you've been to lots of conferences. Always
Okay.
take away something.
No, okay. Can everybody see this? Can anybody hear me?
Yes,
Yep,
we
can.
can
I can
both.
see it. Looks good.
Okay, so you've got the Google Doc in front of you. So this was an amazing list. We've said this over and over again. And now here were the instructions. And let's hear what breakout room number 1 we're talking about. Motivation to GTAs to want to teach. Do you have a spokesperson?
Yes, I can speak for Seymour. My name is Christina Overmeyer from Rush University, and we may not have completed everything that was asked. We were really getting into our discussion about how to motivate the GTAs. This stemmed from us discussing how we see this population of TAs who are not as motivated as, prior TAs, TAs in our past. And we're not sure if it's, population based or, just, the environment, and trying to find ways to, raise the TAs to want to teach and to want to be involved in, helping their undergraduate students. So we were discussing about, Dean Ambrosia was discussing how in her research-based course, she identifies ways to make a teaching practicum where TAs can gain credit towards like a PhD in education, and learning more teaching skills. So it's kind of more of motivation that you're getting something out of being a TA. It's not a job. And so we said, if they're viewing it as their mentoring, it may not seem as much of a chore to them, where they are just teaching or fulfilling the requirements. And then if there is the luxury of extra money, that could be a good motivation to get them involved in these extra training practicums, teaching practicums. And if not, you can motivate them with food. Building a community around food, so we can discuss more how to provide them, more soft skills, other types of training, and seeing how we can help them in their, in their long journey, and not just fulfilling our requirements. What we do to help them in gaining transferable skills and identifying ways to add things to resumes, and what can they gain out of it as well.
But this is excellent. And the whole idea of changing their attitude from being a job and a way to make some money, and taking time away from their research, it really is, the motivation should be more of it. This is professional development for them. And then when they're in their community of other graduate students, that, if you can foster that, that would be amazing. And some of the issues that you might find, perhaps where are you going to get the extra money for to feed them, or extra pay? And perhaps you have a lot of TAs or graduate student TAs that actually have that same kind of attitude. So you've hit on a really important topic here. And it sounds like you've actually got some good ideas too on how to incorporate that into your TA program. So thank you very much for that. Can I have the representative from breakout room 2?
Yes, I'm Monica.
So our room had several interests, but we decided to work on building confidence to work with the students. And the first discussion was that, of course, confidence is going to be built with experience. So we want to address what happens when you still don't have the experience of teaching in the classroom. So there were a couple of things that we were discussing, how to address building confidence. One was providing the opportunity for the TAs to capture a teaching section using a video and having this opportunity over time during the semester and making observations on their own teaching. But clarifying, right, that the observations are going to be directly for them. So they are producing the video to self-observe them teaching. And this, Adam is using this technique, and it seems that it's working well. So there was another suggestion that is that to propose to new TAs when they are getting ready to teach the first class, to take a little time to get to know the students that they are going to be teaching. And this can be something very informal, like having a chat outside of the classroom for a few minutes, like to break the ice. Another idea was to, when you have new TAs that they are going to teach for the first time, allow them to shadow an experienced TA. And so to gain confidence and to see how an experienced TA is teaching. Another possibility is during training, have TAs doing like a mock-up presentation of how to introduce themselves to students, providing like opposite models, a very good introduction of themselves to the students versus a one that is very bad, to contrast how it looks when you do a bad introduction of yourself or you do a very good one. But overall, the idea was to dedicate at least one space in the training program specifically to address the first day of classes. And I think that I covered everything here.
All right. Thank you, Monica. Did you find that there were some barriers or some problems that you might encounter when you're trying to increase the confidence of the students or of the graduate student TAs? Oh.
We didn't discuss barriers, but we discussed it in the case of videos.
Right.
TAs may present certain resistance because, you tend to be very self-critical oftentimes, so this could be a barrier.
Very good. And I think that the implication is that you provide lots of support and indicate to the students that they can do this job. So you can provide them with a little bit of confidence boosting discussion before they step into the classroom or before they do their video recording. So these are some of these great ideas. And it's really important because this is how the class starts off, is if the TA, graduate student TA, has to get there in front of the class, and once they're prepared and they have confidence, everything goes so much more smoothly. So thank you, Monica, and Group 2 for preparing this. So we'll move on now to breakout room 3. And do we have somebody who is going to describe what they talked about?
Yes, I got dubbed for room 3. It was Anna, myself, Pael, and Bethany. And Pael is actually a graduate student at Harvard Medical Center right now. And so our motivation for topic was they're looking at ways to start TA training. And one thing that's been on the minds up there is how to prepare student GTAs for the first day who don't have a whole lot of experience. And so we went around and kind of shared ideas and things that have happened at our institutions. Kind of the biggest issue that was talked about that has been echoed earlier too is how do you toe the line of time management and priorities when you're at a research intensive school and you've got a lot of time that needs to be committed to the research portion, but also still get TAs to where they can be confident and comfortable teaching without making you think they're taking all their time, I guess. So we shared examples of how some of our schools have, 1 day required trainings, others didn't. One institution has lead GTAs that, as part of their teaching responsibilities, or an experienced TA over a group that can be a point person and provide the resources and be an outlet for those new GTAs. We shared that sometimes through TA training, a common complaint from TAs is all this is good and fine, but I don't have the autonomy in my classroom to be able to do these things that you're talking about. But in thinking about it, they actually do, and so realizing ways they could incorporate these things without getting out of the consistent structure of the same stuff that's being presented in the same grading scale, but giving them opportunities where they can have that autonomy to do things that they know would be well. And I even talked about too how as the instructor of TAs at her institution, she likes to model what she's doing for them so that they can do that in the class instead of just being the sage on the stage when it comes to teaching some of these best practices as well. And just the fact that, hopefully motivating these students and knowing that they're a part of this educational journey for these undergrads, they can make a huge impact, and give them a sense of belonging that they are TAs and they're meant to be TAs and they're going to be great TAs and will do well at it. So I think if I missed something, chime in, group 3.
Thank you for that. Now, did you find that there were any kind of issues associated with preparing TAs, graduate student TAs, for their first day of class?
We were all kind of different in what we thought. If it was the first day, what should be covered? And so we didn't really get to a conclusion of like, this is the most important thing or this is the priority, other than I think we all kind of agreed on this idea of just a little more confidence or belonging or that you can do this. And so maybe that's like what some places focus on as far as making sure they know what resources are there if a student needs something, or being equipped with a place to go when they don't know the answer. But really kind of this idea, we all shared how we are still nervous and some of us even terrified of our students on the first day, and we've been teaching for years. And so kind of that sense of belonging, or the confidence, maybe kind of poked its head as maybe the most important thing for a first day inexperienced GTA. But we bounced around with talking about, how to engage students, how to assess them, how to get them into groups and make sure they're all staying on task. There was a bunch of ideas that were tossed around on what's most important, but I think we settled on kind of confidence being what we thought was crucial for that first day for inexperienced TA.
So confidence seems to be an underlying theme with a lot of these issues. How about timing, though? How can you get GTAs to get together, obviously before their first class? Is that sometimes an issue in your institutions?
I think it varied at our institutions. I know we talked about how some just have kind of the required meeting at the start of the semester, and that's about it. Others have TA prep meetings. Maybe it's all the TAs. Others might have been more, the A&P TAs were all together, the non-major TAs were all together, the micro TAs were all together. And they provided, at least with part of their prep meetings, a little bit of topic on teaching professional development, or ways to maybe engage the students, or ways to assess them formatively. But it was across the board, and timing
Right.
was in the back of our mind as that issue too of getting the buy-in or motivation behind doing this. Is this just second nature to my research? What's the point as an inexperienced GTA?
I'm wondering, I know in our own institution, it was an issue that, do you pay them for this time for preparation? And if you do pay them for this time, how does that come out of your budget? So those are some of the issues that we have dealt with in the past. I don't know if that occurs in any of the other institutions, but it certainly was a barrier in
I
getting
can share with ours that is kind of included in their weekly, hourly time commitment to their TA support. But I know it is different elsewhere, and it is a big barrier. You're right.
Well, great. Thank you so much for sharing all this. It's you've taken a slightly different tack than the other group, our group number 2. So this is great. Thank you so much for that. We'll move on to group number 4. Do we have somebody?
Yes. Hi,
Speak up?
I'm representing Group 4, which has me, Chris Miller, Catherine Kirkpatrick, and Rachel Carrick. We noted that a lot of the topics in the list kind of overlap, but one of particular interest to us was this question of sort of mentoring students or helping the right amount instead of giving them the answer. And a way to address this topic, a number of us mentioned getting into this in weekly meetings with the TAs, and ideas like mixing the experienced TAs with the ones who are new to help build their confidence and to share experience. And in these meetings, we could do case studies of difficult situations, or just showing questioning strategies in different situations. A couple other ideas that came up are emphasizing that the TA should have the students walk through their thought process, which is something they might not be used to doing, but will help them improve their thinking and help the TA help them. And also, it could be emphasized to the TAs that these students are coming from diverse backgrounds, both academically and not. In terms of some issues that come up, a lot of it can be issues for the TAs. They might lack confidence in handling the students in this kind of way, and there are also a lot of pressures on them in the moment, whether that is the number of students that they're trying to juggle, or what's most efficient in terms of time. It's easier to just give, oh, here's the answer, instead of walking a student through something, or risking getting something wrong in an explanation. And also, there are some students who really need reassurance. They want to ask every little thing, is this right? Is this right? And the TAs might have sympathy for that, and that might lead them to sort of not addressing the student in the most productive way. So we discussed all these issues. I don't know that we had too much time to discuss ways to target these issues, beyond, as I said before, having the more experienced TAs talk about how they might handle things, and maybe sort of brainstorm in small groups and then share out to a larger group. But if anyone in my group has some thoughts about tackling these issues that I didn't recall, or please speak up.
You did great.
Thank you for sharing your ideas. This whole business about mentoring the graduate students, mentoring each other, the experienced with the less experienced or new TAs, is very powerful. And just like in our breakout rooms, we had a mixture of people with different experiences, bringing those ideas together. It actually helps to build their confidence because they say, okay, well, I do this and somebody else has another solution for this, and you're learning from each other. And so that mentoring experience is very powerful. And in fact, it's sometimes more powerful than having that sage on the stage telling them what the best way to do things is. So I can't overemphasize that is so important. And that follows into your building of confidence. Now, the other issues that you mentioned are more time management, and that's another whole topic, really. I can imagine that you would have wanted to spend more time talking about that, because it's some people take forever to learn effective time management, and the only thing you can possibly do is give them advice. And that's not an easy lesson to learn. So thank you very much for bringing up these ideas. That's a lot to think about right there. Okay, and now let's go to number 5, breakout room 5.
Hello, I'm Laura, and I apologize. My camera is not working, so hopefully you can all hear me at least. I was in a group with Stephanie Gutzler. I hope I'm saying that right. Sorry, Stephanie. Heather Green and Lisa Reyes. I guess I hope I'm pronouncing that as well too. And we chose the topic teaching to a diverse student body, but something that Lisa and I were particularly interested in and what we aimed our discussion at was a diverse student body, like in regards to the range of preparedness of the students that are coming into our classroom. So some really students very prepared to take a undergraduate biology class and those who are not, and how we can help the TAs help all of those students and make it an equitable classroom for those students. We came up with some of our ideas for how we could implement that topic into a training session would be to help the TAs learn how to identify a range of knowledge, so who is prepared and who is not. Teach the TAs about things like a discussion of mindsets, so fixed versus growth. So you can incorporate like that good language into your teaching. Stephanie really had a lot of great ideas for that and can maybe speak more to that. Awareness of implicit bias as well too. So Stephanie was talking a lot about that and what she's experienced with TAs and undergrads as well, that they come in and we all have our biases on what we think people should know and then what that means, how they're going to do in the rest of the course or the class, and maybe kind of fixing that bias. Lisa talked a lot to teaching foundational knowledge and then scaffolding on that. So kind of starting at the basics for those who might not be there and then working up from that to try and get everybody kind of at the same level in the class. A big one for me is like utilizing peer-led teaching and learning. So helping students that may need more help, pairing those with students that have that knowledge to help each other out. And then to facilitate group work. So, and that ties into the peer-led stuff of like pairing students together so they can kind of help each other. Then we talked a little bit about making sure that students feel comfortable going to like the TAs to get help, extra help from their TAs, and making the TAs feel comfortable that they can do that and meet with those students. That was what we've got. I don't know if Stephanie or Lisa or Heather want to chime in.
I think you did a great job. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm a fast talker. I apologize.
Not a problem. This is, you've got a whole grab bag of really interesting ideas here. And that creating an awareness with the GTAs about some of the issues that students that are coming into their classrooms are bringing with them. You know, the ideas of biases and the fixed mindset. So just creating an awareness for the TAs and then how they can approach their own students after they have actually have an appreciation for what stage the students are at. Because you all know that students are so diverse in their preparation typically and when they come into the classroom. So these are really essential topics and things primarily for the GTAs to be more aware of. creating foundational knowledge and scaffolding, that sort of falls under curriculum development. And if that is part of your GTA program, then that is something that's almost like a second level, not necessarily dealing with the students, but dealing with the content of your course and how that's going to be implemented. So you brought up some really good ideas here. Peer-led teaching is very effective, and it was mentioned in one of the other groups. So thank you very much for bringing up those ideas. Let's go to our last group, group number 6.
We didn't choose anybody, but I can speak for our group if that's okay. I think they'll let me know if not. We chose to focus on how TAs can ask effective questions that engage them and promote critical thinking. And so not just fostering collaboration, not just asking them questions, but what are the right ones that can get them thinking about a topic or a preconception they might have. And some brainstorm ways that we already have this or could include this in a training session would be micro-teaching events or micro-teaching sessions. And then also having some experienced TAs demonstrate this. One big issue that came up as we were talking about it was timing, because as we were saying earlier, some institutions have devoted weekly prep, some don't. Some they just have one session at the beginning of the semester or quarter. And so how to implement that in that time constraint was really a big issue we had. Other things we talked about were maybe TAs not knowing the content well enough to even think about questions students might have or misconceptions they might have, or TAs knowing the content too well and being experts and not really being able to identify where a student might be struggling. In our brainstorm to how to address these issues, and we kind of also started thinking about ways to implement into our trainings. And so I know we were just talking about how do you have the time for us to do this and ask the TAs to do more, but prep work in advance of the TA meetings can really help with them coming in with the content knowledge as a base that they can then think about what students can be confused about. And then maybe even having them practice through some of the problem sets and develop a strategy on how to address that. So have them look at one problem, one part, one concept, and ask them to determine like what's a preconception for that or misconception for that. How can you identify a student has that misconception? How can you address the strategy to foster collaboration, get them to think about it? And then how do you check for understanding, kind of making it into a scaffolded formula that they can start practicing in the meetings, that maybe they can start doing this in section a little easier. And then maybe even just role playing to have them kind of practice how a student might be in a situation, especially if you have group learning and different group dynamics that happen.
That's excellent. The whole skill of asking effective questions is something that takes a fair bit of practice, and it is so essential because it's one way of engaging the students and for the TAs to be prepared and sufficiently comfortable with the content so that they can determine what some of the weaknesses might be or misconceptions as you brought up. So, and you've got some really good ideas for how you can incorporate that into a GTA training session. So thank you very much for those ideas. Okay, I am going to now stop sharing. So this will disappear from your screen, I believe, but it will be available. It's going to be a part of the package with our PowerPoint slides towards the very end. Okay. So we're all back now, yes?
Yes, thank you, Kathy. Thank you, everybody, for really taking this seriously and really putting together some great ideas and suggestions. That's great. That's really terrific. So I'm going to resume sharing. And again, thank you. Really, we need an addendum to the book now because you really have some very great ideas. So one thing that I picked up that I thought was really interesting that I never really thought too much about before is that, we should have more video things for TAs who might want to look at things out of the time frame and might want to look at them again. So recording things, it's done a lot more now than it used to be, and more audio things for TAs who might like to listen to things again. So excellent ideas. Thank you all so much. So you've done your program, you've incorporated elements that you thought were important, you fed the TAs, you got good motivation. How do you actually evaluate your program? And so again, I'd like you to type into the chat some of your ideas of a good way, because you don't want to keep doing things if they're not working. So you want to find out some way, are your TA training sessions working? So some ideas, please, and we'll go through these as we did before. Oops.
We've got pre and post surveys every term, midterm feedback note cards, focus group interviews, TA's complete self-efficacy survey aligned with trainings provided pre and post, evaluations from students that are tailored to courses taught by GTAs, present free response case study prompts before and after training. Some great ideas.
Excellent ideas, and really important just to get feedback from all levels. So from the GTAs themselves, what was most beneficial to them, anything they could see as a way of improving, and from the students, if there's a way to get feedback from the students, were they satisfied with the level of engagement of their GTA in the courses. And also important is if there's a supervisor of TAs, so a course coordinator or somebody, if they could give some feedback. Again, pre and post, excellent ideas. So awesome ideas and many different ways to evaluate. Have your goals of your training sessions, your outcomes, have they been met?
We did have a couple more come
Oh,
in.
okay.
I can read. Dan said, use the tried and true method. Ask what 3 things they liked, 2 things to improve, 1 follow-up question. And then Anna said, do TAs want to help with class again? And do they tell other graduate students this is a good class to teach? Workload is definitely not easy. So if they come back, they must be getting something good out of it.
Great, great. So really communication and community, things that have been stressed throughout in all of your deliberations. Having the GTAs feel that they're part of a greater community, that they can have input into it, and really sound communication with your GTAs so that you can help them face any issues they might be having with their teaching. Okay, so now I will.
Are you going to draw for us, Carol?
No, not me. I'm just trying to move to the next slide, and here we go. Okay, Kathy, over to you.
All right. Yeah, that's our comic relief right there. So it is important to continuously think about your program, the things that you've chosen to do to prepare your GTAs, and the feedback ideas that you gave for feedback are great. But sometimes and often you need to apply for funding, or you need to have some reason to justify the program, whether it's a buyout of your time or funding. And so you need to have some evidence that actually carries weight with the administrators. So it's anecdotal evidence, whether the students in the classes really like a TA because they do things a certain way, whether the graduate students really enjoy teaching a certain course. That must be something that's being done that's right there. Or even instructors who are dealing with graduate student TAs and finding that they are much better prepared than if they didn't have that kind of training. But you need to have some way of actually providing evidence. And I think we all know that scientists prefer to have some kind of evidence that is backed by research. by documentation, and so it's the literature that you can often refer to. And so it's different ways of finding literature. I think, can I move the slide, Carol, or can you?
You should be able to, but I'll do it if you want. You can try.
I can try?
Well, there you go.
All right. So there are different ways of, different forms of literature that can inform our practice. And so the meta-analysis of literature is one, and there are several. It's done fairly often, and that you can find surveys of the literature, and they're very instructional because they often will go across disciplines. It's not just biology. It might be biology, chemistry, math, the STEM disciplines, or even going across to TA or teaching training courses in education are really often very informative. And of course, across institutions. So what you do in your institution compared to what other people do. And by looking at those differences, you get new ideas. And often you can have verification, or it sort of gives weight to what you are doing. Because I know what Caleb is doing in his research or his institution might be something that Ash is doing in hers. I don't even know if you're in the same institution, but anyway, that kind of what other people are doing and is successful gives your program a lot more weight, is what I'm trying to say. Now, okay, Carol, can you move me down one?
Yep.
All right. And though you find that the kinds of literature that you have that are more investigative, so there's the qualitative and the quantitative research. The qualitative is very often descriptive, where you have interviews with either the GTAs or you have the instructors, and then you're looking for themes of what the discussion is. Usually there's some guiding questions that everybody is focusing on. Or you could have a group of GTAs that have volunteered to be part of a focus group. And so they are led through a series of discussions based on some questions. And that can bring out themes, can bring out what are the issues that they are finding that are important. And there's narratives that are kind of analysis that goes along with that, and narrative analysis, looking at different ideas and how repetitive they are, and what value they are given. And simply observations as well, observations of how the TAs are doing, and recording that in some way. Most likely there's ways of charting how much time they spend on this, that, and the other thing, and that gives you an idea of how they are spending their time. And that kind of feedback to the graduate student TAs is really important, because very often when you're in a situation where you're teaching, you lose track of time. I know I do. I hope I'm not going over. But so that kind of thing is very important. And then there's the quantitative studies that are probably more near and dear to our heart, because we're scientists, right? And we like numbers, and we like to capture things. And it's based on the scientific method. Is you can actually have treatments, which you would randomize the treatments, and you would have a control where you would find out whether or not this treatment is effective. And as well, and this is much more commonly done, is the using surveys. So there's lots of surveys that have been developed over the years, surveys on attitude, surveys on content knowledge, surveys on self-efficacy, things like that. And those can be administered, and then the way they are scored gives you numerical data. And that often speaks very loudly to administrators, and that they can see, oh, if we do it this way, if we have regular graduate student TA sessions on a weekly basis or once a month or whatever, is much more effective than having just one at the beginning of the term, which is like a TA orientation. So those kinds of data are really important. Okay, Carol? Whenever you do, I might be speaking to the choir here, but whenever you do research that involves people, you need to have ethics approval and very strict adherence to the privacy. So I know that with our research, we were required to keep all responses in a locked filing cabinet for a certain length of time. Everything was anonymous, all responses, and that after a certain period of time, it had to be destroyed. So these kinds of things are extremely important. And you'll find that this is something that you have to think of. All these kinds of research initiatives take a lot of forethought. Most importantly, you have to have your plan in place, and you have to know how you're going to analyze it. I cannot stress this enough. If you're going to develop a survey, if you're going to set up an experimental design, know what statistics you're going to use at the end, because there's nothing worse than getting a jumble of observations or data at the end, and you're fumbling around trying to figure out how to deal with the data. And sometimes you get interesting results. Okay, Carol? So here are just a couple of examples of research that is done. The first one is done by a group from UBC, and this is a first-year seminar course. It's investigating into the life sciences and the research. But what they did is they had a group of TAs, about 13 altogether, and they developed a survey so that the TAs, graduate student TAs, were self-assessing on their own professional development. And it's quite instructive in that they go through the process of how they did this, and then they provide the responses that the graduate students TA. Now, notice they only had 13 graduate students TAs. So very often these research projects are not huge, but they are informative, and they're done in a scholarly manner so that they can be published. Very important. And then the second paper, this was done in New Zealand. So here again, we have an example of different institutions across the world that are doing research into their graduate student TA training, and it provides us insight. And now this particular paper that I've got listed here is actually a literature review. And so if you're interested in doing that kind of research, you can actually go through and see all the different kinds of programs that have been cited in the literature, and they've gone and done an analysis on it. So again, you can go to refer to some of these papers, and they say, look, they've done this in New Zealand, and it's been effective. And so this is justification for any kind of research that you are going to do, or any kind of program that you're going to introduce into Euros. So let's go to the next slide, Carol.
Yep.
Oh, yep, you're there. Okay. So a lot of discussion amongst yourselves, some guidance with Carol and myself. We've talked about and introduced some ideas about research and into GTA training, but hopefully you've come across or come away with some ideas of identifying essential components. It comes up in different ways, but things like building confidence, providing resources for them to prepare themselves, and how to implement them. Some of you have suggested scenarios, others have discussions, more role playing, those kinds of things. So many different ways to implement your TA training essentials, basically. And then thinking ahead to what some of the challenges were. So hopefully there's a little brain now that, you know, you've got a great idea, but maybe there's going to be backlash TAs themselves, or there might be timing issues, or there could be funding issues. Thinking about those in advance so that you can proactively deal with them. And then the last point is we just talked about is identifying ways of evaluating the GTA training program, whether it is just asking for informal feedback, which is often a very good way of quick responding to issues that maybe don't work, or things that you know work really well and you want to keep on doing those. Or going a step further and actually diving into the literature and looking to see what other people have done, ideas that you can incorporate in. And I imagine that there are a number of people in the audience that have already contributed to the literature on GTA training. And so actually you have a community here of people who can reinforce each other's ideas or support each other. So what a wonderful group to be a member of. Okay, and last slide, please. So hopefully I'm going to give you 30 seconds to think about what is the one thing, or maybe 2 or 3 things, that you're going to take away from this workshop. Okay, I hope you've got those cemented in your brain or perhaps written down somewhere. Next slide, Carol. We want to thank you all for participating and for caring about GTA training. It makes such a difference to the quality of education of undergraduates. If you think back to when Carol and I were young students, TAs were not all that effective, but hopefully with the implementation of GTA training, that quality has skyrocketed, and it's actually sometimes better than full-time faculty that may not care that much. I didn't say that. Oh, I'm sorry, it's being recorded. Okay, but I do want to thank you all for the time that you put into it and the energy that you put into it. And of course, you can always find our book. It's online. There's a free version that you can download if you wish. And if you have any questions, feel free to contact either Carol or myself. We would love to have a dialogue with you. So thank you. And we do have one more slide, and this is some other suggested reading references. We've just picked out a few that are fairly recent. Even our book is in there, so you can get onto that by clicking. But these are a wide variety, and we've got Natalie Westwood and Diane Srivastava are going to be presenting tomorrow. So there is the copy of their recent article on GTAs. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. You've been a great group. Thank you for all your input.